Homage to fundamental teacher Buddha Shakyamuni. Homage to wisdom warrior Manjushri. Homage to all lineage benevolent masters. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in a million eons. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize Tathagata's true meaning in order to liberate all sentient beings from samsara, generate supreme bodhicitta. We are now studying the words of my perfect teacher. This should be the 6th session of this course. The 6th volume of the Words of My Perfect Teacher commentary should be completed today. I don't know how many more volumes we'll need to cover. I hope all our students, whether those in the academy or those listening to the live broadcast online, or those who will listen to recordings later. This is quite a large undertaking for me. I continuously pray that I can complete teaching the words of my perfect teacher. The same applies to all of you. Some people have very firm commitment, so there should be no problem. In any case, in this lifetime, unless impermanence has already manifested. When impermanence manifests, no one can face it. Since ancient times, countless practitioners and accomplished masters have also been like this. We live in this world, in this impermanent world, with impermanent bodies, so no one can avoid it. But as long as there is a sincere heart, I hope many of our Dharma friends will see this through to the end. I see many people listening to classes outside, people in cities listening to classes. Sometimes when I see some of their behaviors, I feel a bit sad. Why? Some are here today but not tomorrow, here tomorrow but not the day after. Like in our academy, basically more than 90% of people, 99% actually, attend every day. Except for very few individuals, including some people around me. I don't know if these people have mental problems or physical problems. It's not particularly clear. A few people's seats are often empty, including here. Some people's seats in the study classes. Maybe they have physical problems. If you have physical problems, I hope you tell me directly. If you have mental problems, don't bother telling me. It wouldn't help anyway. Our collective study is not something where you listen when you want to and don't listen when you don't. We ourselves have also gone through study and contemplation over all these years, walked this path. So we also know in our hearts what our attitude towards study and contemplation should be. Of course, people in big cities have dinner with friends today, go on business trips with leaders tomorrow, and something else the day after, so they have countless excuses. An important phone call came. So many people listening to classes in cities. The force of studying Buddhism and learning is very weak. If you can manage various aspects, some people are indeed in difficult situations where they cannot help themselves, but some may not necessarily be that busy or that special. Perhaps they haven't made listening to classes the most important part of their lives. There might be such a reason. Actually, whether we are propagating the Dharma now or practicing ourselves, I think learning while practicing, while simultaneously doing our utmost to tame the afflictions of our mind stream and benefit beings. For each person, if you don't study Buddhism, that's another matter entirely. There's no helping it. If you study Buddhism, you cannot be fickle with this path. So today, I'm also telling everyone in advance. After a long time, it seems like everyone loses their sense of novelty. I would also give a short teaching today and a short one tomorrow and tell a simple story. Tomorrow, tell a story about the 6th Dalai Lama. The day after, tell the biography of Master Yuring. This would attract some people's attention, and I could basically do this. But what's most important for us now is systematic study. Given such an opportunity for each person, impermanence is indeed real. From external conditions, from oneself, much impermanence will manifest. So your opportunity to listen to classes and study is indeed very rare. When you don't have this opportunity, you might feel, oh, I was actually very happy at that time. That was indeed a period of very beautiful experiences. You might have such reminiscences, so everyone should still cherish this. You don't need to listen for my sake. I'm not anything special. but what I study and the Dharma I speak are close to the Tathagata's teachings. Especially the pith instructions of Patrul Rinpoche are indeed rare and extraordinary in this world, particularly excellent. Therefore, each person should have a heart that greatly cherishes this, an attitude of appreciation. Only then can you have certain gains for yourself. Today we should finish the training of Aspiration Bodhicitta. The 6th volume of the Words of My Perfect Teacher commentary is now complete. The 7th volume will begin teaching Application Bodhicitta. Previously, we taught exchanging self and others bodhicitta, and equalizing self and others bodhicitta, and considering others more important than oneself bodhicitta. Now we're teaching the last one. In teaching the last bodhicitta of considering others more important than oneself, we've discussed some examples. Today we continue with this principle. Actually, in the Aspiration Bodhicitta section of the Words of My Perfect Teacher, we also told many stories of Buddha offering his body when he was on the path. There are quite many stories about abandoning one's own body. Also, in the treatise on the Great Perfection of Wisdom, Buddha taught that when he was on the path, once he became a deer, living in a particularly beautiful forest. Later, the forest caught fire. When the fire started, they prepared to escape from this dense forest. At this time, there was a long river in the middle, and many wild animals couldn't cross it. Later, this compassionate deer placed its front legs and hind legs respectively on this shore and that shore, letting many wild animals cross by stepping on its body. By the end, its body was completely exhausted. Its entire body was trampled by feet and hooves until it could no longer stand upright. At this moment, finally, there was a small rabbit that needed to cross, but it endured until the end and finally let it cross. After it crossed, the deer collapsed and died in the river. There was no way. When it was an animal, it also made such sacrifices, letting all these beings pass through hardship while sacrificing itself for them. Later, Buddha said that Venerable Subhadra was the last one Buddha liberated before his nirvana. When some disciples asked about this situation, Buddha also said that when he was on the path, when crossing this river to escape the fire, he was also that last little white rabbit to be saved. Now, when I became Buddha, Venerable Subhadra was the last one I liberated. So, among these very moving stories of Buddha's past lives, all involved Buddha using his own blood, body, as well as his wives and wealth to make offerings, and what he gained after making these offerings. Moreover, each time he made offerings, he had no regret whatsoever. Therefore, Buddha also said in the Sutra of the Great Heap of Jewels, cities and great lands, wives and lifespan. When offering all of these, his heart initially had no regret. All of these things, when he offered them, he had absolutely no regretful heart. When we use some scriptural quotes here on PPT or elsewhere, it's best if the people below can write them down completely. Actually, when our Dharma teachers give classes, the main purpose is for the people below to benefit. Finally, whether it's scriptural quotes or whatever you understand, if you know some people have poor memory or poor eyesight and can't write it down. Later, they should still borrow from each other. I heard that some individual Dharma teachers here teach very well, but they keep their materials rather secretively. When students below ask about scriptural quotes, the teaching is very brilliant, but after it's finished, they never say it again. I think such secrecy is probably unnecessary. Why do we say it? The reason is so that the people below can remember it. If you don't let the people below know, don't let anyone know, then you might as well not say it at all. So some Dharma teachers, probably not out of arrogance, but some may lack experience. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche once said in class that very few Dharma teachers only memorize many scriptural quotes. But below, they don't really look at the foundation of the people below. They just perform a role in front of them. Very brilliant, amazing, but actually this isn't very good. So I hope whether it's our Dharma teachers or those below who really don't understand those with slightly better grades, whether lay people or monastics, if you can remember, I see some people when they are writing down scriptural quotes, they won't even let the people next to them look, blocking with their body like this. Buddha Shakyamuni could even offer his body to others, but you can't bear to let others see even a scriptural quote. Then what Mahayana Buddhism are we studying? Sometimes I see people next to others who really can't remember, quietly looking from under the armpit, and that's very difficult too. Peeking, there's no other way. They use this method. Looking this way, they can only look from under the armpit. So everyone should have a sincere heart. No matter what kind of teachings, letting everyone benefit is very important. Previously in our Tibetan areas, some particularly excellent Dharma teachers, they would teach once, then like our former Khenpo Depa, he would teach in the morning and in the afternoon. At that time there were no tutors, so the old master would go tutor them himself. During tutoring, some scriptural quotes they couldn't write at all, didn't understand. Then he would repeat to each person again, help them write, let them memorize themselves, strip by strip of paper, given to many people to write. So thinking of some things, we should still. Each person, of course, if there are too many people in our class here, going one by one is really difficult. But for particularly good scriptural quotes, print one copy per day, or each person can remember one part. This would be very good. What we teach, we want many people to understand. This purpose, everyone should be clear about. So today here, we're teaching about Buddha's past lives. This should be the story of King Manicuda. King Manicuda's experience of offering his own body. At that time, we cannot regard these stories as mere legends. Such things truly happened in history. When measuring ourselves against each event of Buddha's past lives, I always feel that I am very, very ashamed indeed. Although we have generated bodhicitta before all Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and the Guru and Three Jewels, but in actual practice, of course, we also cannot compare ourselves with ground-level bodhisattvas. But many behaviors, indeed, I feel that I haven't truly generated aspiration bodhicitta yet. The training of aspiration bodhicitta is like this, as taught here. The training of application bodhicitta will be taught below, the 6 perfections. The training of aspiration bodhicitta. To truly practice aspiration bodhicitta requires exchanging self and others and equalizing self and others. But whether we can accomplish this is of course very difficult. However, each of us, first, follows Buddha Shakyamuni. We could say in current terms, we are fans of Buddha Shakyamuni. We are followers of Buddha Shakyamuni. So, how did Buddha act? In our hearts, we should do our utmost to step in this direction. This is one thing. Another thing, truly since beginningless time, we have been harmed by self-grasping and true grasping. Previously, we had people volunteering in the nuns' assembly hall. When volunteering, 2 volunteers had different viewpoints. Later, one volunteer secretly told on me. I later became unhappy and started criticizing him, and he knew it was he who told. Once when we went together, that Dharma friend said to him, you harmed me, because I criticized him. He knew. On one hand, he might not have acted quite right himself. Plus, when I criticized him, he was very unhappy. You already harmed me. Why did I harm you? Because Khenpo just criticized me. From beginningless time, it has been self-grasping that harmed me. Everyone should be clear about this. So we need to abandon self-grasping. Abandoning self-grasping is still very important. To abandon self-grasping, one way is to meditate on emptiness. Another method is to generate Mahayana bodhicitta. How did Buddha selflessly give when he was on the path? And each bodhisattva when on the path was also like this. We should also start from now. For example, how did a teacher act when he was a student? We are also students now. We should also learn from the teacher. How good was he when he was a student? Then we should also take him as an example and learn. Below, we'll tell the story of Buddha Shakyamuni's incarnation as King Manicuda. Long ago, there was a country called Shakyamuni. In this kingdom, there was a king called King Golden Crest, and his queen was called Queen Joyous Beauty. And later, a prince was born. This prince was quite special. He had a jewel crest naturally born on his head. From this crest, nectar could descend, and this nectar could transform even iron into gold. This descending nectar was very special, so people named him Prince Manicuda. When this prince was born, from the sky also descended various kinds of excellent jewel rain. This was the scene when Prince Manicuda was born. King Golden Crest had an elephant that was the finest among elephants, the excellent mountain jewel elephant. Prince Manicuda gradually grew up. After growing up, he inherited the throne and began governing the country properly and lawfully. Moreover, he believed in Buddhism, had a very kind heart, and often made vast offerings, making the entire country, from top to bottom, eliminate the phenomena of poverty and begging. Near him, there was also a sage named Bhrigu Sage. Bhrigu had a beautiful woman who was born from a lotus. Later, she was offered to Prince Manicuda, son of King Golden Crest, as queen. I had a prince, and this prince was also very wonderful, exactly like King Manicuda. Later, because his mother was born from a lotus, he wasn't called Manicuda, but Lotus Crest. Their entire family had crest in their names. Previously in Boston, America, there was someone whose grandfather was called J, father was called J, and son was called J. All three had it. They said it was J, J, J. Exactly the same character. I don't know how. Later, upper, middle, lower. When others addressed them, upper J, middle J, lower J. Once the king was making vast offerings and invited Sage Bhrigu to a feast. Sage Bhrigu naturally accepted the invitation. They are recently related, aren't they? There was also a king hard to endure. King hard to endure. Below is a bad person. This character must. Some of you particularly like reading novels. When reading novels, at the beginning, some important characters must appear. When this scene appears, you must watch their expression. See what kind of role they'll play below. So here appears King hard to endure, and many people were invited to the feast at that time. At that time, Indra, to test the king's motivation, transformed into a Rakshasa and emerged from the fire, offering flames, and came before the king to beg for food. The king gave him various kinds of delicious delicacies, but he refused all of them and said with a smile, "I don't need other food, clothing, and such offerings. I need a particularly fresh, warm blood and flesh of freshly slaughtered animals." At that time, his request was like this. Then the king was very troubled. He thought in his heart, this leader is quite special. He keeps his phone on while listening to class. Then the king was troubled, thinking, if there's no harm to sentient beings, there's absolutely no way to obtain warm blood and flesh. But the king himself would rather abandon his own precious life, but would absolutely not harm even a single paw of any sentient being. If he didn't give him offerings, perhaps this Rakshasa would also feel deeply disappointed. He was quite troubled, didn't know what to do, and kept contemplating. Later, after reconsidering, it seems the time has come to offer my own blood and flesh. So he said he would give his own blood and flesh to the Rakshasa. As a king, sometimes we should consider these positions. For example, an ordinary person's status is completely different from a king's status. So when someone makes such a request before a king, in our world now, let alone a king, even an ordinary leader, when others have some requests, he might not respond for a long time, wouldn't treat it as anything important at all. Sometimes it's really difficult for our volunteers. Some time ago, I went to a Tibetan area to give teachings. When teaching, there were thousands and thousands of locals, especially many people. There was a little girl, about 10 years old. This little girl was blind in one eye and dressed in rags. Below, she started shouting loudly, saying, "Could she please?" among all the people. Her mother was already sick. Could she ask everyone to donate money over the loudspeaker? At that time, because I didn't have the authority, the local monastery and their organizing committee had certain requirements. But if I didn't speak, she kept making a particularly piercing sound over there, constantly saying how her mother was sick. At that time, many people refused, because after all, she was just a teenage child. Many of the people in charge at that time rejected her. At that time, I was thinking in my heart, if Buddha in his past lives had seen such a pitiful being, probably on one hand he wouldn't refuse. On the other hand, I was also very troubled that day, so later I advised them not to refuse. Wait until after class to come find me, and later I gave her some money, because asking for donations among so many people, the organizing committee probably wouldn't agree. But sometimes in our lives, when we truly encounter others' requests, when we need to fulfill others' requests, the king, as someone who had already generated bodhicitta, ordinary people in this world would completely refuse. "I won't give, I don't have any." One sentence could reject it. But indeed, Buddha in his past lives was different. In these aspects, I think many of us might need to reflect deeply. At that time, many retinue, because he had already agreed to give his blood and flesh, many retinue were panic-stricken, extremely anxious, and tried every way to dissuade him from such offerings. As his relatives and friends, they certainly didn't want this, but they couldn't stop him. He had already made his decision. There was no way. The king used a needle to pierce his fine crown vein and offer blood to the Rakshasa. The Rakshasa drank until completely satisfied, kept drinking blood until satisfied. After that, the king used a knife to cut the fine flesh from his body for the Rakshasa to eat. He kept eating until finally the white bones were exposed. Continuously on the body, all the blood in our world. For example, giving a little blood to a patient or donating some organ. For example, donating a kidney, when there's no particularly great harm to one's own body. Perhaps individual people are willing to volunteer, but if there's truly some harm to one's own body, many people find it very difficult to do. In the end, all the retinue were very sorrowful, especially the queen. Because of his blood and flesh offering, was so grieved and sad that she fainted on the ground. The king had not yet lost his mindfulness when Indra said with boundless joy, because when Buddha was in past lives, often Indra, we can see in the White Lotus that he said, "I am Indra. I don't need blood and flesh. Please stop this offering." After saying this, he took out celestial nectar and blessed the king's wounds. Subsequently, the king's entire wound healed as before. This is in the story of King Manicuda, first offering his own body as blood and flesh, although he was Indra's manifestation. But truly, regardless of whose manifestation it was, Buddha at that time in his past life had already offered his own blood and flesh. Offered his own blood and flesh, this was one experience. Later, the king, as mentioned before, the most precious jewel elephant passed down from his father, but this jewel elephant he gave to one of his ministers called Chariot of Brahma, because this elephant, perhaps at that time, this minister also needed it. After this, giving away this elephant, originally it was a national treasure, shouldn't have, but when others made such requests, Buddha in his past lives never failed to satisfy. He would give everything, no matter how big or small. As an elephant at that time, truly the most precious thing in the country. But this too, he gave away. This was one instance. Because the elephant was gone, below, I remember, there's still mention of when King Hard to Endure came to ask for the elephant. King Hard to Endure, at the beginning when they were hosting guests, perhaps at that time, King Hard to Endure had already observed that they had the elephant. Later, when he was making offerings, he developed a greedy thought. but King Manicuda had indeed already given the elephant to one of his ministers. At that time, a disciple of the sage Shimarichi, who had already attained meditative absorption, came before King Manicuda. The king very respectfully asked, "What do you need?" because he made vast offerings. That disciple said, "My guru has transmitted much Vedic knowledge to me, but I want to repay my guru's kindness and have no other way, because he is now aged and has no attendant to care for him by his side. I very much want to offer an attendant, so I've come to beg for your queen and prince." His prince was called Lotus Crest. After this request, the king had already granted it. So we must understand why in Buddha's biographies it often says he gave away his wives and princes. People in our world now, let alone giving to others, for example, if their own children suffer even a little harm, they can't bear it and start seeking revenge. Or if their family members have some relationship with others or temporarily go somewhere else, they can't stand it. Worldly emotions are extremely attached. Especially some young people seem to be confused by emotions to the point of abnormality. Including some current teachers, some practitioners might also be like this. They've suffered some psychological stimulation, as often said in Han regions. After that kind of thing, they are no longer normal people. But these things, when Buddha was in his past lives, weren't considered important matters at all. What were his values and his true life goals? It was to help others. The only thing was to have benefit, to have love. This love is not what worldly people now constantly talk about. Love, romance, and so on. This kind of romantic love is completely built on a foundation of selfishness. But Buddha in his past lives was absolutely not like this. It was completely a kind of vast, boundless, great love. This love is selfless, wanting to help others without any conditions. As long as others could have happiness, he was willing to give everything. This kind of love, at that time, he offered his queen and all of these completely to them. Now, he gives his own offerings. Actually, this story still has quite many characters. This one appears for a while, that one appears for a while. Then, King Hard to Endure. Wasn't King Hard to Endure the one who came before? King Hard to Endure particularly liked his elephant. After returning to his own territory, he sent people with a message telling King Manicuda, "You must give me this elephant." At that time, King Manicuda was also troubled. He had indeed already given the jewel elephant to the Brahmin, chariot of Brahma, who should be one of his ministers, already given away. But he wouldn't listen no matter what. He kept demanding, "If you don't give me the elephant, I'll use military force. I must start a war. I'll use American military fighter jets." At that time, he said he was preparing to deploy large armies. King Manicuda said very sadly, "Led by greed that pollutes the mind." Originally, King Hard to Endure and he had a very good relationship. Whenever there were banquets, they would invite King Hard to Endure to come and enjoy. But now, the closest friend had instantly become the greatest enemy. "If you don't give it to me," unreasonably demanding the jewel elephant. "If you don't give it, I must use military force. I'm for democracy, for peace, for the safety of the whole world. I must." So some countries say things like this, but actually they want to occupy oil fields or other things. There are also such cases. At that time, King Manicuda contemplated in his heart, "If I lead troops to truly go to battle, it would be quite easy," because King Manicuda's tactics and weapons were quite excellent in all respects. But this way would certainly harm many sentient beings. Battlefields cause deaths. It has always been this way since ancient times. The traces of battlefields generally cannot heal even after many years. Very difficult. So he thought of a way. Among the 36 strategies, retreat is still the best strategy. Leaving this territory himself would be the best solution. Just at this time, 4 Pratyeka Buddhas descended before him and said, "Great King, now the time has come to go to the forest." Then, relying on the miraculous powers of the 4 Pratyeka Buddhas, King Manicuda left the palace and reached a particularly quiet forest to live a life of practice. Now, King Manicuda had already left. His prince and queen had also already been offered away. The elephant offered to the minister. The original entire country now still had great changes. No prince, no king. What was the purpose? Not wanting to harm sentient beings. Actually, now many countries' kings, presidents, or military committee chairs, many people's thinking is egocentric. All of them. They speak of the whole world, the whole nation, but actually each country is egocentric. When Buddha was King Manicuda, indeed, this direction still had a great difference. So you, who like studying military science, can sometimes imagine that spiritual goals are completely different. At that time, the various ministers under King Manicuda went to sage Marichi to request, because this country basically had no leader. Later, they prepared to invite Prince Lotus Crest back. As a result, sage Marichi had also agreed, so they brought him back. After bringing him back, Prince Lotus Crest became king, became leader, and led the army. Because king had to endure was unreasonable. The king himself had already left and gone to the forest. In Gendun Chepel's travels in India, it says, in those places in India there were many kings, because the king's royal positions had already been occupied by other countries. After being occupied, they went to another mountain to live forest life. Sometimes these kings would go up the mountain to look at the palace where they originally lived there. When their hair had turned white, tears would still drop one by one, because they felt they could never return to palace life in this lifetime. At that time, the king had already left and come to the mountain. The prince was invited back. After being invited back, the prince was still quite good. He led the army. Originally, King Manicuda was confident he could battle them and achieve victory. Later, they fought with King Hard to Endure and achieved great victory. King Hard to Endure suffered crushing defeat and fled back to his own country. There was really no way. In the end, he didn't get the elephant, and the battle also failed. Finally, he still returned, and after returning, because King Hard to Endure's character was particularly evil and his behavior despicable, so in his territory, various kinds of things occurred. Serious famines, plagues, nuclear leaks, etc. That day at Nanjing University Doctoral Forum, when I was teaching at that time, it happened that Japan experienced an earthquake. But I heard Nanjing people were particularly happy. This isn't very good. It just happened that the earthquake occurred in Japan, probably the day before. I told them that, although historically speaking, Nanjing people and Japanese people still have many unpleasant things, perhaps you also have quite different feelings in your hearts. But no matter what, we are Mahayana Buddhists. There, including the magnitude 9 earthquake, tsunami, and a volcanic eruption, took away many people's lives. I hope each person today must recite Avalokiteshvara's mantra 100 times. I recited while watching. Very few individuals still didn't want to recite. Mahayana Buddhists. Perhaps in universities, not everyone is necessarily Buddhist. At that time, that country experienced extreme famine. King Hard to Endure asked some fortune-telling Brahmins how to effectively eliminate the disasters of famine and plague. The Brahmins, after observing, replied, "If King Manicuda's crown crest can be obtained, it will definitely be effective, because it brings down nectar that can even turn iron into gold. Many inauspicious disasters can become very auspicious. It has this kind of blessing power. We should go seek it." At that time, King Hard to Endure himself thought, because King Manicuda left the palace, King Hard to Endure actually had some connection to it. He thought in his heart it probably wouldn't be given. If we were worldly people, he had already left the palace. All having some connection to him, how would he give the crown crest? You yourself demanded the elephant. At that time, King Manicuda had already acted this way, so how would he give it? But later the minister said, "Everyone knows King Manicuda has nothing he won't give. He'll give anything." So King Hard to Endure. If you find a way to send someone to ask, you'll definitely get it. Later, he dispatched a Brahmin to go to the forest to request King Manicuda's crown crest. At that time, King Manicuda This story might also have many parts appearing in the middle. Below might be another type. At that time, when King Manicuda was enjoying the forest scenery and strolling leisurely, unknowingly he walked to where sage Marichi lived. Originally, his queen and Prince Marichi had already aged and had no attendant, given to him where sage Marichi lived. This is also a kind of interdependence. Sometimes it's very coincidental. People, whether they have some grievances, also often encounter each other. Some good connections, including emotions between people. Many are all very coincidental, inconceivable karma that brings them together again. There are also such cases. So at that time, Marichi probably didn't specifically choose that forest. And that king also didn't necessarily specifically choose this, but basically, they came together. At this time, King Manicuda's queen often went to the forest to search for leaves and roots, preparing to offer them to sage Marichi. Once she encountered a hunter. The hunter developed extreme desire for the queen and prepared to assault her. At this time, when the situation was very dangerous, that queen was unwilling. Although she had left King Manicuda, she constantly remembered him. When she encountered disaster, she often prayed for King Manicuda to rescue her. She shouted loudly like this and wept bitterly. At that time, King Manicuda heard a particularly familiar voice from far away. Originally, the voice of the queen he had offered. Then he went to see what had happened. How could there be the particularly familiar voice of his queen in the forest? When he walked over from a great distance, the hunter thought he was sage Marichi. He was particularly afraid because sages were originally very powerful. If he chanted evil mantras, one would immediately vomit blood and die. There are such phenomena. So at that time, this hunter was very afraid and then fled in panic. The king saw. In other stories, it's also told this way. Originally his queen, when she was in the palace, whether in clothing or food, she had many consorts below her and many maidservants constantly offering service to her. But now in the mountain, she was dressed in rags, everywhere picking vegetables and fruits, appearing thin, dark, and particularly haggard. At this time, after the king saw this situation, he remembered having the original royal power and incomparable happiness. Now feeling such pain, the entire scene of the queen, he was very sad and couldn't help sighing. Alas, all conditioned phenomena in the entire world have nothing reliable. Sometimes when you understand Buddhist teachings, in the person's life, there appears happiness for a while, suffering for a while, having everything for a while, having nothing at all. Various things appear in a person's lifetime. At that time, the king also saw this scene, and generated tremendous renunciation toward impermanence and all phenomena, having no reliability. Any phenomena in the world, in the end, there is really nothing reliable. This point is very important. The Sutra on the concentration of sitting meditation also says, whether the world is large or small, no phenomena are permanent. Nothing remains for long, appearing briefly like lightning. All phenomena have nothing that remains permanently, just like lightning. Whether your talent, your position, or any of your everything, everything is like lightning. Nothing is reliable. Including the gathering of our family members, gathering of friends, gathering of teachers and students, in the end will still be impermanent. The Flower Ornament Sutra also says, gatherings must scatter in an instant. All glory and wealth are impermanent. Our gatherings will scatter in an instant, will all disperse in a moment, including worldly glory and wealth. In the end, not one is not impermanent. All follow nature and vanish in an instant. So people in the world who haven't studied impermanence, haven't studied Buddhist principles, when family members die or their own body or wealth, when impermanence manifests in various ways, they really can't bear it and have mental breakdowns. But people who have studied these principles, although they can't completely respond according to what Buddhism teaches, sometimes they also won't suffer as extremely as worldly people. Finally, really unable to face it and preparing for suicide, This phenomenon won't occur. At this time, the Brahmin sent by King Hard to Endure arrived. This was such an experience in the middle, so I hope everyone still needs to read this story. After all, these are stories from Buddha's past lives, not like some ordinary worldly stories. Some of you remember worldly stories clearly. Some Dharma friends can't remember many transcendent stories. Worldly movies, especially Hollywood movies, they remember particularly clearly. This is karmic obscurations manifesting. At this time, the Brahmin sent by King Hard to Endure had already reached King Manicuda and told the entire process of his coming. How King Hard to Endure sent him, what disasters appeared in the country, needing your crown crest, etc. The king said, "You can cut it off yourself." After the Brahmin cut off the crown crest with a knife, he returned to his own country. The result was indeed that it eliminated all plagues, diseases, and famines in King Hard to Endure's territory. Because King Manicuda's crown crest was severed, his crest was after all a flesh protuberance. The pain was unbearable. Later, it was extremely painful. And through this condition, he generated tremendous fierce compassion for the hot hells and fainted on the ground. At this time, auspicious signs suddenly appeared everywhere. This attracted many celestial beings, as well as King Manicuda's own retinue and disciples, who all gathered there. They began asking the king what had happened. His entire head was bleeding, very frightening. The king stood up while gently wiping the fresh blood from his face with his hand and said, "King Hard to Endure has already requested my crown crest, and I have already given it. Originally, he was a hateful enemy. We really still need to think he made the king unable to stay in the palace and go to the wilderness. And when he again requested his crown crest, he had already given it. This is truly very difficult to imagine. Sometimes we ourselves should think carefully." Then the retinue asked what hopes the king had in his heart when offering his crown crest. The king replied, "Except for hoping to eliminate the plagues and famines in King Hard to Endure's territory, I have not the slightest selfish mind. But I constantly harbor one strong wish. What is this wish? It is hoping to be able to rescue all sentient beings." Buddha in his past lives was always like this. Indeed, except for rescuing sentient beings, he had no other thoughts. Actually, we Mahayana Buddhists really should have this in our hearts too, temporarily, whether in our daily activities or our eating and living, not considering at all, I am daily for sentient beings, for all sentient beings. Some practitioners don't even want to cook or stir-fry for themselves. I'm daily for sentient beings. I don't even care about eating. It's not this meaning. My purpose is like this. To reach this purpose, we are on the path. Certainly, we need to maintain our own bodies. This point is necessary. He only had this wish. The retinue said, "After offering your body, do you have any regret?" The king said, "I absolutely have not the slightest regret." The retinue saw his extremely painful expression and exhausted state. It was very hard to believe. At this time, the king made a solemn vow. "If I have not generated regret toward King Hard to Endure's retinue, taking away my crown crest, by the power of truth, the blessing power of the three jewels, and the blessing power of my pure mind, may my body be restored to its original state." As soon as his words finished, his entire body was indeed restored to its original state. When we analyze some other scriptures, this was an experience of Buddha as a first-level Bodhisattva or above. Otherwise, generally speaking such words of truth wouldn't necessarily restore the body immediately. At this time, the retinue also made request. Because the king's body had already recovered, the retinue requested the king to return to the palace. At first, the king didn't agree. Later, the four Pratyeka Buddhas, because conditions had ripened, came before King Manicuda and said to the king, "You benefit even hateful enemies so much. Why abandon your relatives and friends? Now you should return to your own land." So the king returned to his own palace and brought immeasurable benefit and joy to his retinue. This story is an analogy for considering others more important than oneself. The genealogy of the Sakya clan also tells countless times he offered his own body. Even the earth goddess came out to testify, etc. So we should know that Buddha in his past lives, without seeking any reward, offered his own body countless times. This point Buddha also mentioned in the Sutra of the Questions of Manjushri. The sun and moon shine on all flowers without thoughts of gratitude. The Tathagata has nothing to take and seeks no reward either. The Tathagata is also the same. When benefiting sentient beings, he benefits universally, all sentient beings. But he himself absolutely will not accept any reward. Buddha in other sutras, for example in the Sutra of the Question of Maitreya, also spoke countless times. For example, when he himself previously became Prince Artavaha, he offered his own fresh blood to other sentient beings. And when he was Prince Padma, he offered his own bone marrow to other sentient beings. When he was Prince Moonbright, he offered his own eyes to sentient beings, etc. There are many, many very wonderful and moving stories. So we should also think when studying bodhicitta, we completely lack the ability and conditions for such offerings at present, but we should try our best to place others in important positions. Oh, I have already generated aspiration bodhicitta. I'm not like other people in the world. Even when I'm dying, if one moment of virtuous thought can benefit sentient beings, this point is very important. Why do I often say the foundation of the words of my perfect teacher is very important? If we don't have such a foundation, and you come from above, for example, the great perfection practices of primordial purity and spontaneous presence, these practices, theoretically we can also teach them. This is nothing special. Without practicing any preliminaries, without receiving any empowerments, your deepest teachings, for example, some great perfection instructions can all be taught. But indeed, without a foundation, it won't work. The previous 4 preliminaries like the difficulty of obtaining human birth, etc., relying on spiritual teachers, these are very important. Then refuge, generating bodhicitta, confession, etc. If these foundations are very good, I think our later study and practice will indeed also be very good. Looking at the biographies of many masters from hundreds of years ago, practice is about building foundations. This point is also mentioned in the Sutra School's Flower Ornament Sutra. Practicing in such sequence, gradually possessing all Buddha qualities, like first establishing foundations, then later building palaces. If we practice sequentially, such people can possess the realms of all Buddha Dharma. So what is the source of this? It's that we must first build good foundations. If you have a solid foundation, then building wonderful palaces on top of this will have no difficulties whatsoever. Otherwise, indeed, what we do becomes quite difficult. These are all the Tathagata's Vajra words. As Buddhists, everyone has no choice but to believe and must rely on them. If we don't even believe these teachings, then we might still have to revolve in samsara. Just as the Buddha speaks of the Sutra of Transforming Female Bodies says, if there are sentient beings who do not believe the Tathagata's truthful words, these people will experience great suffering for long nights. If we sentient beings do not believe the Tathagata's words of truth, then these people will for immeasurable countless eons in the dark long night of samsara continuously experience intense suffering. They cannot possibly attain liberation, but no one wants this. Everyone wants to quickly, rapidly, soon recognize the nature of mind, leave the ocean of suffering of the 3 realms of samsara, and definitely want to go to the wonderful continent of liberation. This should be said to be the ultimate goal of every Mahayana Buddhist. Our goal is not to get rich. Our goal is not to obtain happiness for ourselves, but to attain liberation from samsara and benefit immeasurable sentient beings. So everyone should remember this point, must remember it. So on one hand, we cannot forget the previous sequence of practice, and we must take our preliminaries seriously. In this way, our practice will be very complete. Otherwise, through our years of research and study of Buddhism, combined with our own small amount of practice, we indeed need sequential and systematic hearing, contemplation, and practice. Only this way can we truly taste the flavor of Buddhism's inner, profound, and beautiful meaning. After this, it will be very beneficial for both ourselves and others.
Sunandai Tancha Bhagaya Tanani Dharma Basi Jirgana Jirano Chupai Chupun Sonen Dravasya Bandharangara Badma Sadarda Bandharangara Badma Sadarda Bandharangara Badma Sadarda